Hey friends, it is Wednesday. That means Ask a Flower Farmer. It's your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and glad to be here with you guys today. So let's just talk housekeeping first, right? So if you have a question you would like for me to try to answer, just put it down below in the bubble with the question mark. And I will answer as best I can, and I'll get to as many as I can. We go until 12 o'clock. We're answering questions about farming and gardening and business and farm dogs and anything connected to actual farming and gardening with cut flowers. So I want to say that there's just been a lot of questions, and I just want to kind of hit on just a couple of those. First off, a lot of people are asking me about thinning, and I want to say for cool flowers, right, cool season hardy annual stuff that was planted last fall, particularly you're talking direct seeding, right? And so I start thinning our cool flowers once they kind of start a little bit of growth here in spring. So literally I took my covers down yesterday, and my agrostemma and my bachelor buttons literally have buds and are shooting straight for the sky. So obviously it's time to thin them. But any direct seeded stuff, once it kind of is looking like it's coming out of winter, then you can actually thin them. And I wanted to show you guys, this is the hoe that every girl on our farm for 20 years has carried like a purse. We just use it for so many different tasks, and thinning is one of the ones that I actually love this guy for. And this has been out of stock for like October, November, and December, and we've just gotten them back recently. Let me get rid of this mask. It comes in a right and a left-handed model. We have both models in stock. She literally just got a huge shipment of these, is why I thought to show you. So if my hand is the soil surface, the way that any hoe should work that has a stationary blade like this, our stand-up hoe and the hand hoe, is the blade should always be flat on the ground, not like this. This is what people do, is they scrape and pile up soil. If you just simply hold it upright and pull it through the soil like a butter knife going through the long ways of a stick of butter, right? To slice it long ways. You just can't believe, first off, you don't disturb nearly as much soil. It takes out everything in its path. But I also use this baby not just to weed, but to thin, because most of my spacing is every 6 inches, and I tend to oversow direct seeded. I just take this and make swipes throughout. If I have a running row of seedlings, I'll swipe, leave a few seedlings, and swipe, and then I'll go back and do a little bit of hand weeding. So you'll find these at thegardenersworkshop.com, and I'm telling you, it's the best tool ever, and you can sharpen them. They're Japanese. We buy several Japanese tools that we just absolutely love them. So you'll find those, and we have righties and lefties, friends. The other thing, all of our hearts and minds are with Ukraine right now. And something that's been circulating on social media is about, sunflower is their national flower, right? And some folks have been reaching out saying, oh my gosh, does this mean there's going to be a sunflower seed shortage? It does not, because they are the largest producers of sunflower seeds for oil, not for the production of seed production for planting. So I just wanted to say that to folks, to not have to worry about that. We have enough production problems with seeds, right? Get them while you can. But I wanted just to put that out there that we're all just showing our sunflowers, but I don't anticipate, beyond our normal pandemic seed shortage, any shortage of seeds. Now, oil may be a whole different issue. But anyway, and I wanted to tell you that we do have the new colors of stock in stock, the apricot and the lavender. I'm looking. Apricot, the cherry blossom, the double white. Oh my goodness, y'all. So stock is what we are, we plant that in very early spring. So You need to keep your eye on our new seed category on our store. I think there's like 40 new seeds in there. Some of those have been added in past months, but about half of them are fairly new, some new killer celosias. So check that out. So I see we have some questions down here, so I'll say again, if you have a question you'd like for me to try to answer, post it in the bubble down below with the question mark in it. So, Sarah is asking, at what point do you give up on seedlings and start over? I'm having germination issues and don't know if I should start over. So, Sarah, I know exactly the experience that you're having. I mean, we have them from time to time too, right? So, what happens is if you have really, really poor germination, I mean, you can fish out, let's just say that you get 10 out of 50 that germinate. You can, try to keep those 10 still going, but I would definitely start over again. Just start with a fresh batch of everything and go for it again. In my mind, whenever I have less than 50% germination, then I consider it a fail, and then we start over. Sometimes we'll save those 50% that did germinate, but you definitely start over again. Room for flowers. I'm in a climate very similar to yours, but my last frost date is a couple of weeks before yours. I'm trying to plan for summer. How long will the cool annuals last through the summer? So she's asking how long into the warm season do cool flowers keep going? There are so many variables that matter about that. Did you fall plant it? Did you very early spring plant it? How, are they healthy and happy and going? So I would say to you, we pretty much, other than Lisianthus and straw flowers, which are two cool flowers that go into summer, they bloom longer. All my other cool flowers, I'm just thinking, this is kind of a blanket statement, which I don't like to do, but I would say by mid-July or so, they're all done, in general. There might be some stragglers in there, but it is just too hard. How mature were your plants? How happy are they? What's the nutrition? Are they being watered? There's just a lot of stuff that really affects that. Morning, could you explain on how cover crops work? Do you plant some for spring beds? What kind of cover crops used and how to remove cover crops and get ready to plant? And Cultivating the Heart is asking about cover crop. And those are all really great questions. I'm going to give you the quick and dirty answer. And in my book, Vegetables Love Flowers, there's a couple of 3 pages that I designated to this. The reason you grow cover crop is it's not to cut and to harvest. It is either to benefit your soil, whether it's through building nutrition, organic mass, helping to prevent weed seeds from germinating because you cover the soil surface with the cover crop. So those are the reasons that most of us grow cover crop. I mean, it's really a pretty endless boat. But cover cropping, first off, is not for every gardener and farmer. I would not even attempt to start incorporating cover cropping into your succession until you really kind of have your successions down. It is not for the faint at heart. And you have to really know how are you going to extinguish it, meaning end its life, terminate it, and then what's the next crop. So in general, I would not recommend people cover crop until you have your successions down or you have a lot of extra room and you have equipment to take care of it. But you can look in Vegetables Love Flowers, which is really a book about 3-season cutting garden, to talk about that. But here is my recommendation. I only recommend 2 different types of cover crops for people that are not experienced yet. Experienced growers and just getting started in cover crops. For warm season, which means they grow like zinnias and sunflowers, is buckwheat. Buckwheat is a super quick from seed to bloom, like 30 days, but even more importantly, it is super quick to break down when you extinguish it at the proper time. And I will tell you, that is most people's failure. They do not end the crop at the proper time, and so then it becomes a reseeding mess and it gets really tough and old. all cover crops, in my experience, are best extinguished, meaning silage, tarp it, mow it, till it, whatever you're going to do, at the peak of bloom. So that means when it's the prettiest, and it's really, really hard to do, but that's the whole point. The other one that I recommend, which is a cool season, is crimson clover. And it's the same thing. You fall plant it, it'll take down to -10 degrees. Then it winters over as a nice little canopy. And then in spring, it starts to bloom in April. And that is when you extinguish it. That's when the maximum benefit is reaped. You get the maximum nitrogen from clover as you get from that. But when you extinguish it during the peak of bloom, not only do you get the maximum nitrogen, the plants are really fleshy and green, and they break down the quickest. If you let that plant go on for 2 more weeks and let it get more mature and tough and woody, it'll take forever for it to break down, right? And this is why all of these things I'm saying to you are why people hate cover crop. They want to grow it, but they don't want to follow the rules. And that is the rule. You have got to extinguish it, however, at the peak of bloom for it to be the fleshiest and the most beneficial and the quickest to break down. Now, if you fall plant crimson clover, I would never fall plant crimson clover where I need to plant in spring, because there's not enough time for it to make that turnaround. And so you have to, that's why I say you need to really plan your cover cropping, and don't even think about doing it until you have some experience. So if I was just starting out, I would probably put, and I had some beds that I was thinking about clover, but now you're thinking maybe I shouldn't have done that, or I'm not going to do that. You can always just put a couple inches of compost down, y'all, and put a silage tarp on it to hold it from growing weeds while you're waiting for your cash crop to go in. So kind of went down a rabbit hole there. Sorry. Hi from Argentina. Could you give me some tips to germinate small seeds? Well, hi, Sarah from Argentina. So tiny seeds generally need light to germinate and a lot of oxygen, which means that you would firmly seat them on the surface of the soil. That means you do not cover them with soil at all. That is one reason that we just were so drawn to soil blocks. It's just really easy to provide that for them. Putting a seed seeded on, you don't just drop it on the top. You need to push it and just make sure it is making contact with the soil. And then we lay wide weave burlap, which you should be able to find, I would think. It allows air and a little bit of light, but it also helps to retain moisture. And so that really kind of suits all that. But that's the deal. Most people think all seeds get covered with soil, and they don't. And in general, tiny seeds need to have light to germinate and oxygen. Mariana, what are you doing on your farm regarding the warm weather Virginia is having in March? I'm in Spotsylvania, Virginia, and I'm so confused. Well, first off, this is not unusual at all for Virginia. I mean, I've been farming for 24 years, and I mean, we get 70-degree days in January and February. That is not totally unheard of. And you just go with whatever comes, right? So, like, for instance, we are just now getting to the point where I took my covers down yesterday, I think. So it really, you just have to kind of watch the weather. I put my covers up when it's going to be in the mid-20s or lower at night for my cool season hardy annuals. And, everything is based on frost dates and nighttime temperatures, y'all. And you just have to make that part of your day. I mean, that's the second thing I look at every morning after I get out of bed is the weather app, to actually see what the next 2 weeks look like, to kind of start thinking in my mind. So, yeah, the warm weather there's nothing you can really do about it, right? Cultivating the heart. Can you touch on when you start the warm season seeds like zinnia, and how early do these get planted before last expected spring frost? So cultivating the heart. The proper time to plant warm season tender annuals outdoors without any special handling is when your nighttime temperatures are 65 degrees and above. That is typically 2 weeks after your last expected historical spring frost. So my last frost is mid-April typically. And so May 1st would be that planting time. We take heroic measures. We use black film, and we also use hoops and row covers. So that means we literally will be planting closer to like right when our last spring frost is expected. But the ground is still not warm and it's still cool outside. So that's not really, so 2 weeks after your last spring frost is the target. And then we would be starting the number of weeks, like 3 to 6 weeks, depending on what warm season zinnias would be 2 to 3 weeks before that time. And the other thing I want to say about that is that you have to really take into account the big picture. So we start starting our warm season for that very first planting that I just mentioned, right? But we don't put all of our eggs in one basket. We don't start the lion's share. We will then have another, as soon as those warm seasons are started, then we start working on the next succession. And that's where we get bigger volumes for our production, because all it takes, I mean, several years ago, April 20th or something, we went down to like almost below 20 degrees. I mean, it snapped our peony buds, it snapped our Lysianthus stems, it actually naturally cut them all back for us. And it took out some warm season tender annuals. So you're gambling when you go early. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. So we'll be starting some to go right after our last expected frost date, and then we'll get busy on our next round. Room for flowers. Any tips on netting? I looked for a video on your site, but didn't see one. If you go to the actual product, I'm not sure if it's there. I know there's one in Flower Farming School. I'm not certain. Somebody write that down. I don't know if we have a video on the product. Normally we have how-to videos on the actual product on our store, so you can check that out there. But the big problem that I see so much of with netting is that people have it much too loose. It needs to be taut from end to end of the bed and from side to side. That makes it easier harvesting, and it makes it safer for wildlife. When it's loose, you're just asking for all kinds of troubles. Do you pinch snaps before planting out? You can pinch. Yes, I have pinch snaps, and we do from time to time. When my pinching method is that we pinch 50% of all crops that get pinched, meaning I don't ever pinch an entire crop. We pinch half, so we get benefits of pinching and non-pinching all at the same time. So she says she does not see a video there, so we'll put that on our bucket list. Somebody please. What do you do to protect outdoor snaps from bunnies and other critters? I have had issues. So row cover will definitely do that. You can leave them covered up until, once a plant gets over about 12 inches tall, the bunnies can eat from the side, but they aren't literally eating it from the top down. I mean, a plant can grow to about 18 inches under low tunnel conditions, wire hoops and covers. So you can, that's how we kept bunnies from eating our sunflower transplants for years. We now have a bunny patrol team. It's called Hawks and Raptors. In fact, I did not post a picture of this because it doesn't rub right with all people. But yesterday morning, day before yesterday, on our walk, Tucker and I saw some fuzz, bunny hair. And I thought, oh goodness, was it the fox or was it the hawk? All that was left was a little tuft of hair and literally 2 little bunny feet. I do have a picture of it. I couldn't believe it, really. There was no other trace of the bunny. Just 2 little back feet, which obviously had no meat on it. So we encourage predators. So we really don't have a bunny and a squirrel problem out in the garden much anymore. But a row cover can do that for you if you don't have natural predators. And I encourage you to encourage natural predators. What is the trick to get Rudbeckia Triloba to germinate it is the only one I had issues with. So Triloba is a different variety of Rudbeckia from most of the others, and it is a super strong reseeder, and I do believe it needs a little bit of cold treatment. And so we store our seed in the freezer prior to starting it, and then popping it out and starting it, and we have a really strong show there. So you just need to chill the seed. So if you've already started them, you can literally put your trays in the freezer or blocks, however you are starting them. We know of people that are actually doing that and having great success. So I want to say a couple things before we're out of time. At 1 o'clock today, my talk over on Clubhouse is about seed starting sunflowers. And that I'm starting sunflowers starting tomorrow on my Facebook Live tomorrow. That's one of the things that I'll be doing. And I'm talking about the special steps that I take and what you need to consider and figure out when you need to do that. So if you don't know about Clubhouse, Clubhouse is an audio phone app. Just like we need another social media app, right? But it's just audio. It's really pretty cool. And I chat for about 15 minutes, and then I take questions there, and you can even come up and we can talk on it. And so just download the phone app, join Clubhouse, then join my club, which is flower farming. And love to have you join me over there. We have a nice crowd that goes over there, and it's a lot of fun. Lucy Baker Flowers, I thought your podcast chatting about flower farm spacing on sunflowers is very interesting. What spacing would you recommend for production planted Rudbeckia? Two totally different families, but I mean, in general, all of the Rudbeckias, with the exception of Triloba, follow the same spacing I follow on most annuals, is 4 rows to a 30-inch wide bed, 6 inches apart in the row. And that's kind of general. And all of you also find that in my book, Vegetables Love Flowers. Please go over how long you keep sunflowers under lights before hardening off. I don't really keep sunflowers normally under lights at all. During the season, as soon as they germinate, they get moved outdoors to an open porch where they sit. And I'll be talking more about that at Clubhouse at 1, about not during the normal season, early in the season like we're getting ready to do now, which is a very different system, right? Sorry, I'm trying not to hit the wrong button. All right. Is phlox a cool flower? I don't remember hearing you talk about it. Do you grow it? Any tips? There are several different types of phlox. I do believe that there are some annual varieties and there are perennials. And no, I have never grown phlox. What comes to mind when the perennial phlox just really gets mildew really, really bad here in our region. And I think that the annual is borderline too short for us. I mean, we just don't grow anything that doesn't get over 20 inches for sure. So that's probably why. Cultivating the heart. Bells of Ireland and Buplurum seed starting tips, please. Not going well for me. Also, so Bells of Ireland, we direct seed that in the fall. And we do that because the temperatures are so cool then, and we can winter it over. There, I know people up to zone 6, so that means if you're in zone 6, 7, 8, or 9, you definitely need to be fall planting bells. And we have excellent germination, freezing the seed for at least a week or two, and then just taking them out, soaking the seed for at least a few hours, really hard shell. It's hard to get them to pop, but I have not started bells indoors, so I cannot comment on that. The Buplurum seed starting, so if you're not a member of my special closed Facebook group named The Flower Farmer Show, you need to join it, and you just have to answer a couple of questions and request to join, and we'll let you in. In there is my step-by-step on doing Buplurum in trays, and it's right pinned to the top, and we just actually tried those same steps on Bells of Ireland and it didn't work. So anyway, but Cultivating the Heart, you need to join that Facebook group and it's in there. Kim, Zone 7B 8A near Raleigh. Should I continue to plant straw flowers? I have done 2 successions already that will be planted this week and 2 weeks from now. Good job, Kim. So last year, we know that straw flowers will continue to perform into the heat of summer. And so I say yes, I would probably go to waiting a month to start more. But our very early spring planting ones, shoot, they get waist high, if not taller. I mean, they're pretty robust. As we planted them last year, a month apart for 3 more plantings, they got shorter, but they were still more than tall enough for great cut flowers. Straw flowers is a bouquet filler that you will never be sorry you have more of. And you can always sell it commercially. So yes, I would continue. And Kim, it's really all about, what your summer conditions are like and how well you treat it. Do you get it watered in and well established? So I would go once a month, and I wouldn't start a boatload. I would start, enough to be worth it, but do once a month for 2 or 3 more times and see how it goes. I think that is definitely a experiment worth trying. Straw flowers are a significant crop that a lot of people really overlook, and that's why we've added all the straight colors to our lineup on the store at thegardenersworkshop.com. We have the peach apricot mix, the yellow, the white, oh my goodness, the silvery rose, and orange, which of course is my favorite color. So we're growing all the straight colors, and they are just significant bouquet fillers, not to mention in the heat of the summer, when sometimes you experience zinnia meltdown, which that's just a syndrome that happens in zinnias, and all of a sudden your zinnias don't last worth a toot. Straw flowers are what can save you. So it's worth an experimenting. All right. Will Ami and Dawkis survive a summer season? That really depends on your summer. Here for us, and I'm in mid-Atlantic, long, hot, humid summers. May through October are pretty hot and heavy around here. And it really depends on your conditions, but this is what will happen. We can leave them out there. They'll continue to grow. They start to get a little diseasey by midsummer, but what happens is the stems get shorter and shorter. They aren't worth keeping. The one thing I want to say, y'all, before we get off here, and I'm going to take one more question after I say this. Instead of spending so much energy trying to stretch cool flowers into the warm season, you need to get busy on exploring the warm season benefits and making the most out of those, because so many people just don't even grasp. I mean, do you know how many awesome celosias there are? I could sell celosias alone to commercial customers, to designers and florists, and sell nothing else. I mean, there are so many killer colors. We have Selway now on our store, the terracotta, the whites, the lemon yellows. I mean, there's just no end. So instead of trying to go to all these extraordinary measures to make stuff go beyond their seasonality, embrace the season. That's kind of been the secret to my success all these years. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, right? So Carla asks, when you water the garden with liquid Neptune, do you pull up the row covers or water through the row covers? We never, ever water through the row covers. Your watering is not like rain. We always push the row covers back whenever we're doing any watering chores. If it's not coming through the irrigation and you're using a wand or a watering can, you definitely need to just push the row cover off and then do your job. And if you need to put the row covers back, just put them back on. So I just want to say again for you guys to don't forget to meet me over on Clubhouse if you want to really learn more about what I'm doing with sunflowers. And I have 1 more minute. Any tips or tricks on germination of snapdragons? Snapdragons are are surface sown, and then you have to retain the moisture on the surface. That's why we start them in a small soil block, the 3/4 inch blocker. They're seeded firmly on the surface, and then we lay the wide weave burlap, and you can see what all that looks like. It's all over at thegardenersworkshop.com, the burlap. And the burlap traps moisture but allows air and light to get through. And then the air temperature will really be important. You know, cool season hardy annuals, better known as cool flowers, like cool air, warm soil. And then of course we use cookie cooling racks on our heat mats to cool the mat down just a smidgen. They definitely need warmth. They just don't need heat. And then a cool air temperature between like 65 and 68 degrees for sprouting. All right, friends, so it's 12 o'clock. I'm going to sign off of here. And so join me over on Clubhouse. I'll be talking about the 5 sunflowers that I'm going to be starting and what I'm going to do to ensure that I have sunflowers for Mother's Day. No hoop houses here, friends. All grown out in the field. So if you want a hoe, I recommend you get one, and we've got them now, so head over and check that out. All right, friends, till we meet again. Ciao.